Wonderful, anyway. So I'm going to move on to our first speaker, who's Lindsey Ahmet, who's a senior midwifery lecturer at the Middlesex University, who are sponsoring this conference very kindly. She's a nurse and a midwife for over 30 years, she says, and she's been with the Middlesex for many years, and has a great interest in FGM, which is what she's going to talk about today. And she's been involved in a lot of things locally and nationally, so she's got a very good strategic and policy input. So I'm going to hand her over without any further ado. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about this. It's a really important topic. A bit of warning, it is just an introduction, and those of you who want more detailed information will need to see the PDF of an extended presentation with more graphic visuals of A&P and more details of clinical care. There's only a certain amount we can cover here. We will hopefully be continuing the themes that Sue mentioned, particularly about compassion. I also want to say that the confidentiality, respect and support that you would want to extend to clients and the affected communities also applies to women here, because our colleagues may well have experienced FGM as a personal issue. If that is the case, I am available at break times if people want to see me and talk about specific information that you want for support for yourself. The PDF will have links to general areas for midwives. Advert time, I don't know how ethical it is. There's lots of things going on. We've got a fantastic conference on the 20th. Now, £90, a few spaces left if you book up. Should be a really good day. Multi-professional social workers, doctors, the Met Police, lawyers, early years workers. It'll be a lovely day. Do join us that Saturday at Hendon, but you really need to book up now. It is the International Day of Zero Tolerance of FGM on the 6th of February, and there are activities around the country today, tomorrow. Some of them have already happened, and some of them are coming later in February. So I do urge you to participate. This is just a taster. I want to frame this a little bit because it's important to remember that this is an incredibly complicated, multifaceted issue. FGM is an important part of some people's cultures, their identities, for example, but it is not a religious duty formally in any of the Abrahamic faiths. It's a practice that is normally done out of love and not cruelty, although you'll hear me say we need to treat it as if it was child abuse. It is normally imposed on girls by women. It's really important to remember that, although many people would see it as part of patriarchy. It's really important that we address this issue with cultural humility, which I think Brenna's talking later. She'll talk about the importance of being culturally sensitive, because in only that way will we be effective. It needs to be paired with really good clinical care and safeguarding. FGM is illegal in this country. It has been illegal for over 2 decades. We haven't really been getting on top of it, and numbers may be increasing. That's really setting it up. But it's not just reducing risks of women who have already been damaged as children, emotionally or physically, by FGM. It's also about making sure that we end FGM. Public health role of the midwife is really important, and without our community colleagues, the communities involved, we cannot make sure that we end FGM in this generation. I just want to be a bit political here as well, to say that maybe there's certain institutional issues that's impaired us taking up these challenges. Maybe institutional racism in the NHS has been a difficulty. We have had laws for over 2 decades. There are NHS rules and guidance which are available to us all. There's many excellent existing clinical care pathways. There are safeguarding protocols which involve the interprofessional teams. And there's a number of training systems electronically within different universities. And for some reason, it's been hard for us to address this. It's important to remember, if you're from the Shires or further afield, this is not just a London issue. Women who have experienced FGM may come and live in your area just because that's where their jobs take them, or the Borders Agency could reassign them if they've come from Syria or recently joined the country. This is an issue for us all. And what's holding us back might be lack of knowledge, it might be the practical skills, it might be lack of kind of cultural imagination and thinking about compassionate understanding. And that's not needs to be more effective in the way it goes. We also need to know that for clients it's a challenge. FGM is often hidden and private and people don't want to talk about it or share it with us. They may be wary of us. Not everyone thinks a midwife is lovely. They may be challenging strong peer pressure, family pressure, gossip, for example. So you've already told us who's here, so we'll pass on, but I like that picture of the mother and baby. We've got really good intercollegiate guidelines that have been in operation for over 2 years, and a lot of them are now being in place in terms of guidelines and law. So Royal College of Midwives and our sister or brother colleges, Obstetrics and Gynecology and Royal College of Nursing, etc., has outlined that we need to document and collect information, share it systematically, and make sure that we're empowered. So that means really knowing what we're meant to be doing and knowing the systems we're working with. Identification of girls at risk is really important, and we need to make sure that we have an effective safeguarding policy to deal with that. Usually local safeguarding boards have got a special protocol. Now, all cases of FGM do need to be reported, and we are accountable to do that, as with all aspects of our practice. Formally, if we treat FGM as child abuse when we discuss it as professionals, that's often helpful. But we do need to remember we need to empower and support girls and women from the affected community, because it's them who are going to change in the future. All our advice, all our admonitions, all of the threatening to take people to the courts isn't going to stop it. The community is the one that is going to stop it. So we need to implement an awareness campaign. The WHO definition, I'll let you read it there, but to remember that it's all-encompassing. The terms we actually use might be helpful to think that we use the WHO recommended term as supported by Forward and other black-led organisations in this country, which is to use FGM, because that conveys the complexity and the seriousness of the issue. When you're talking with families, use the words that they use. So if they talk about open or closed, clean or cot, or perhaps bondu if they're Mandingo speakers from Sierra Leone, use those and record those. Okay, no graphic details, but we're going to go through the types of FGM if you aren't aware of them. Remember, women may not know if they have been cut because it happened when they were babies. They may not know what type they've got. How many people look down below their vulvas with a mirror? Sometimes called sooner. Infibulation, this is where the labia close together, often of more serious interest, but it's important not to miss the others. Pricking the clitoris may leave no marks at all, particularly if it's done as a baby, so the safeguarding aspects can be quite difficult. Dr. Hode in Camden in London has done quite a bit of studies on this, and where this is the type of FGM, it's very hard to determine that it's happened at all. Do note that it might be someone who's gone down to, let me give an example, tattoo parlour in Camden Town in London and decided she'd like a few labial rings because that's the fashion. That's a form of FGM. The initial risks of FGM depend on the conditions under which they were undertaken, whether or not they were in a rural, completely unhygienic situation, a chiro clinic, or a backroom in Lambeth. And be advised, we do believe that FGM is currently happening in this country. It is not just abroad somewhere. The risks depend on the type of FGM, the age at which it was done, and at every age of a person's life, from when it was done, where she might die of hemorrhage, or septicemia, or urinary retention effects, or shock, and up to old age, where she may have kidney failure due to those ascending urinary tract infections, or possibly cervical prolapse. Lack of research, so community colleagues, this might be an area of research for you. I can't underestimate and emphasise to you enough the amount of trauma that women might have had emotionally. We talk about holistic care. If you think the woman's had FGM, make sure that the assessment includes her emotional well-being. If you look at this global map, you'll see that there is a kind of tropical band going from Africa east to the Pacific Rim. And large numbers of women are affected. And of course, some of those are countries with close links to the UK, and it is often women with those backgrounds we find here. So we need to be aware about who the affected communities are. And as confidential inquiries said in the past, you should know what's the demographics of your area. The good thing is that in the developing countries, particularly in parts of Africa, Kenya is a good example, where they've been active in beginning to reduce numbers. For example, circumcision by voice rather than knife. The UK, latest figures out, although again it may be hard to know exactly because it's an illegal, hidden, taboo subject. Overall, around the UK, less than 0.5%. But if you're living and working in London, it's maybe up to 5%. And the number of women who are affected of childbearing age will be even higher. So I just want to emphasise to you that it is very likely that rates in London are rising, probably because of population changes. And some of these are women who may have been circumcised as girls in the UK or Europe. I particularly want you to remember it is not only an African issue. So if you have people from the Pacific Rim countries or Kurdistan, you may well find that they have been circumcised as well. 6,500 girls vulnerable. I do think it's important to remember this is FGM is a human rights issue. This is about bodily integrity, and it's about perpetuating gender inequality. Our focus will be clinical care, and we need to keep within the Act, but to remember there are wider issues. Many of you may be familiar with the original 1985 Act, so we've had this law for a long time. And then in the 2003 Act, they increased the number of years you could be sent to prison. They increased the kinds of offences that were covered. And basically, taking a girl out, you going out to do FGM, sending a girl out to do FGM are all illegal. There is no age. So if you made your neighbour go and she's 85, or you circumcised her, it's still illegal. The only defence is that if it was a surgically, medically necessary procedure. For example, intrapartum episiotomies and their repair. The mental health does not include belief that FGM is required as a matter of ritual. It does, however, cover things like gender reassignment. There have been no convictions for FGM crime yet. There have been some prosecutions, but we'll come up to some more successful legal interventions in a moment. Serious Crimes Act, 2015. New offence of failing to protect a girl. There are also now mandatory duties on us all if you're a registered professional. The new powers of the FGM protection orders have actually been effective, and they can be initiated by the police or social workers to stop a girl where there is a serious threat of her being taken out of the country, and this has happened with the Bedford Police last September. Also, social workers may intervene through the local safeguarding proceedings and have an FGM protection order served on somebody where the girl is already abroad. And Kent social workers got a girl back from Somalia when she was at close risk, and she was safe. She was brought back. Mandatory reporting. Some of you might have heard of this. This is now our remit. We have to do it. And it's not case finding. If in the course of the work you find somebody under 18 has been circumcised, you need to report it to the police. It's your individual duty. You ring 101 is the number. Threat of FGM, mandatory safeguarding proceedings as you'd normally do it within your local protocols, which you should all know, but which do vary. If for some reason there's an imminent threat, then you'd call 999, but it's 101 by the end of the day. That's for all of us. There is plenty of guidelines, multi-agency guidelines on how we're working. These have all been available for some months now. I'm just going to very quickly mention, very quickly without details, the aspects of clinical care. Key aspects antenatally, identifying mothers with sensitive questioning. I would argue routine question everybody. It's like domestic abuse. You never know where it's going to be an issue. You might want to use prompts. If you think the woman is particularly from an affected community, you know there's family history, or if there's other signs like she takes a long time to pass urine. Most people would then refer her to specialist advice, particularly a clinic where she could discuss the options, think about what defibrillation might mean if that is what she's requiring, offering defibrillation and counselling. and thinking about what will happen in the future. Does she need family support and advice? Ideally, most clinics nowadays, and there are many in London and elsewhere, would suggest that 20-week defibrillation is the best, with a 2-week follow-up. However, you need to be aware, those of you who are labour ward coordinators, that the first time you know a woman is circumcised is when she turns up in labour, including infibulation. So you need to have somebody on every labour ward and a clear protocol. It's really important we always look at vulvas as well. People forget that, because there might be type 1 or type 2 that hasn't been mentioned, which won't impede delivery. The key aspects of safe delivery of mother and baby, and it's important to remember that in the developing world, in Africa, the WHO multi-trial study showed that there were major mortality and morbidity risks for mothers and babies with any type of FGM, really seriously dangerous. We hope that no one was going to end up with a fistula anywhere in the UK, but there are many great risks. If you cannot see her urethra, you cannot empty her bladder. You can't do a caesarean section. So you need to have careful care of her. Avoid scarring of the perineum, normally deinfibulation, and we'll have links to some videos on this, because otherwise it's a bit hard to explain. The raw edges will just be held back. They sometimes don't bleed, it depends, just as you'd normally suture, and depending on when she came, what her stage of labour was in progress. But if you can't do a VE and you can't see the urethra, you do need to deinfibulate her. Postnatally, you need to monitor that bladder function. You need to discuss the changes, because if she's been defibrillated, it will feel very different. She may have different sensations urinating, and she needs a 2-week specialist review. They need to talk about the safeguarding issues, and the baby girl needs to have the information to her parents right away. And make sure that the FGM is recorded in the baby book with the details to social services. Really important. Subsequent follow-up of the family, need to do that. Now, you had previously a suggestion that you should meet somebody else. I'm now asking you to do that. Just 30 seconds or so while I go through some other slides about sources. I want you to introduce yourself with name, job title, where you're from, and what you are going to do in the next 6 months to end FGM or to reduce risks. This is all our job, and I'll go around and ask you, just like I'll have the leaflets for everyone for whom this is a personal issue. I'll ask what your commitment is, and I know this isn't an English thing to do. I'm not English. I'm asking you to shake hands on it, and I want to see hands shaking. Okay, go. I really mean it. Come on, left-hand side. Renner's here. Yes. Yeah, we've just got this. Okay, thank you. I will be asking. I will. This isn't somebody else's job. It's not just for black midwives. This is our job. If you're any members of the press here, okay, or lay people, it is also your job. If you're links with schools, this is your job. Key aspects: ask, inform, discuss, record, refer. It is our duty to protect women and girls from harm. Ensure you know your care pathways and multi-professional team protocols. If there's not one, go home and make it. Even if you're a student midwife, you need to do it. If you're a manager, make sure these pathways are commissioned. But we do need to work with the community, and we do need to know that they're going to be taking the lead in some of these issues. We have to audit the care. We need to know the numbers and see if we're making a difference. How do the clients view it? Maybe they prefer pre-pregnancy, pre-marriage deinfibulation. Maybe they think we're all horrible. Maybe we don't have the right languages available. We have to monitor it. Okay, one of the nice examples of communities leading are particularly the young women. You know, the youth are the future. And it's with them we will be able to end FGM in one generation. There's a two-pronged work here. So I'm going to go on to that, and we're just going to hear part of this. Oops, sorry.
buckle up, get those feet steady. We are ready for the day. It's time, 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 it's time.
Trying to help the women that you're keeping on the low. Soon as we speak up, you tell us that it's a no. But we gon' keep fighting till we make this thing grow. On the telly, in the papers, or on the show. You trying to bully us like the playground kids. But we don't take shit from the playground kids. Could be girls dying every day, but they don't make the news. Instead we get some issue about traffic stopping, bike robbing. London had the fight mobbing, top story Kanye. Got another album dropping, all we asking for is FGM to be stopping. Yeah, Michael Gove wanna stop the patriarchation, put an end to female genital mutilation. Let's all say no to women's violation. In the press page 3, women's humiliation. They don't know, then they need an education. If girls want help, who's gonna have this conversation? And I'm sorry, Michael Gove, if you still don't get it. I think it's time, just beat it. You gotta go, go, go. It's time, it's time, it's time,
It's time, it's time,
it's time, it's time.
it's time. Can you feel that thunder?
The thunder in our feet.
Okay, thank you very much, Integrate Bristol, and you can see the full details. That's the end, but let them be our lead and our shining example. If Kenya can do it, we can do it in the UK. We know most of the communities there. We shouldn't say, oh, it's not our job. It is our job, and I'll be asking you what you're going to do. Thank you very much.